The man's eyes sparkled with adrenaline as he gripped the bright red remote control tight. His grin stretched wider than before. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. Every muscle in his body was tense with focus, ready to unleash chaos or create a spectacle. His mind raced with possibilities and his heart pounded like a drum. He looked directly at the camera as if daring the world to watch. "All right," he said, voice sharp and excited. "Let's do this. You ready?" Without waiting for a reply, his finger hovered over the buttons, then pressed down with authority. Instantly, the ground beneath him rumbled. A deafening explosion erupted at the center of the scene, sending shockwaves rippling through the dusty, uneven ground. Flames burst upward, swallowing the air with bright, fiery fury. The scene was wild, like a scene from a movie, and he was the star. He chuckled, eyes bright with thrill. "That's just the start," he shouted, voice echoing over the chaos. "Watch what happens next." The explosions grew larger, more intense, spreading outward in a wild dance of fire and smoke. Dust billowed into the sky, blinding and thick. A rusty red car, parked near the back of the explosion zone, shuddered violently. Its metal body shimmered in the flames, destined to be part of the spectacle or perhaps a victim of his wild control. The scene looked carefully staged but dangerous. Perfect blend of destruction and art. Bright yellow and black caution tape flapped wildly, caught in the gusts of hot wind. Barriers lined the perimeter, trying to keep the chaos contained, but the man's energy made it feel like he was in control of everything. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the unfolding chaos. "See that? That's real power," he said, voice full of pride. "And I'm the one who's making it happen." Suddenly, a twist. Just as he pressed another button, the remote flickered. The bright red device in his hand blinked erratically as if it was alive, like it had a mind of its own. His smile faltered. "Huh? What the—" Before he could react, the explosions intensified. But something was wrong. The flames twisted into strange shapes, forming symbols glinting with an unnatural light. The ground trembled more violently now, cracking open in jagged lines. The remote in his hand started to vibrate fiercely, emitting a low, ominous hum. He stared at the remote, eyes wide. "No way," he muttered. "This isn't supposed to happen." A sudden gust of wind swept through the scene, carrying a strange metallic scent, like burnt copper mixed with something else, something colder. The fiery explosions seemed to pulse with a life of their own, as if they weren't just flames but something alive, something sentient. Then the remote suddenly jerked free from his hand. It floated in midair, glowing, pulsating. He reached out, but the device was gone, pulled into the chaos like a magnet. His mouth opened in shock. "What the—" From the heart of the explosion, a new shape emerged, something massive, shadowy, and terrifying. It was as if the fire itself had birthed a monster. Its form was blurry at first, but then it solidified. A towering figure made of flames and darkness, with glowing eyes that sliced through the smoke. The man took a step back, eyes darting between the creature and the remote now floating eerily in the air. This can't be real," he said, voice trembling. "What did I do?" The creature's voice boomed, echoing in the chaos layered with static and distortion. "You played with fire," it said, "and now the flames have awakened. Something ancient." The explosions around them suddenly stopped, leaving a heavy silence. Only the giant, fiery figure stood there, staring, waiting. The man's heart hammered in his chest. He knew this was no ordinary stunt. Something far worse had begun. And as the creature's eyes flickered with malicious intent, he realized he'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. The fiery giant's gaze bore down on him, burning hotter than the flames it was born from. The man stumbled backward, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He clutched the remote tightly, but it felt useless now, like holding a toy in front of a storm. The creature's voice echoed again, deeper and more menacing. "You thought you controlled the fire? No, fire controls you now." Its eyes flickered, with an unnatural glow, illuminating the chaos around them. The ground trembled wildly, cracks spidering outwards, as if the earth itself was breaking apart from fear. He took a frantic step back, eyes darting for an escape. "What? What are you? What do you want?" The monster's shadow stretched tall and terrifying. "I am the fury buried beneath the world's surface, the flames that once burned in secret, hidden from the eyes of men. And now you've summoned me." The man's hands trembled. "I didn't mean to. This was supposed to be just a show, a demo. I didn't know." The creature roared, a deafening, thunderous sound that shook the air and made dust fall from the sky. "Your show has awakened what was never meant to be awakened, and now I will burn away your illusions." Suddenly, the flames around them surged, twisting into twisted shapes, forming fiery tendrils that reached out like claws. The man watched in horror as the monster's form flickered, almost like a mirage, then solidified into something monstrous, bigger than he'd imagined. He looked down at the remote, still in his hand, trembling. "Is there any way to stop this?" he whispered, voice cracking. The creature's eyes narrowed, a cruel smile curling across its fiery face. "Stop? No. But you can choose, to run or to fight, because I won't be contained anymore. I am free." A gust of wind swept through the scene, carrying the smell of scorched earth and something else, something colder, metallic, and sinister. The flames flickered wildly, casting shadows that danced like demons across the cracked ground. The man's mind raced. He had no idea how, but he knew he had to act fast. The remote in his hand suddenly felt heavier, like it had a mind of its own. He raised it instinctively, pressing buttons at random, desperate to regain control. But nothing happened. The remote's lights flickered and dimmed, as if it was losing power, or being overridden. The fiery giant lunged forward, tendrils of flame lashing out in all directions. The man ducked, narrowly missing a searing blast of fire. "This isn't real," he shouted, voice trembling. "It's just a stunt. It's all fake." But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't a stunt. It was real. And somehow, he had awakened something ancient and terrible. The creature's voice echoed one last time, ominous and final. "You brought the fire to life. Now it will consume everything." And with that, the giant's form exploded into a blinding flash of light, engulfing the entire scene in a fiery inferno. The ground trembled violently, and everything around him seemed to dissolve into chaos. He closed his eyes, feeling the heat on his face, knowing that whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same again. When the raging flames finally subsided, the world around him was unrecognizable. The ground was cracked and blackened, smoldering remnants of what once was. The fiery giant was gone, replaced by a thick, choking smoke that hung heavy in the air. But amid the haze, something shifted, an unnatural silence, broken only by distant crackling. He stood frozen, eyes wide with shock and fear. His hands trembled as he lowered the remote, which now lay useless at his feet. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He had unleashed something beyond his control, something ancient and wrathful. Suddenly, a faint glow emerged from the smoke. It flickered like a dying ember, then grew brighter, revealing a shadowy figure emerging slowly. It was taller than a man, cloaked in swirling flames that danced around its silhouette. Its eyes shone with an icy, malevolent light, an otherworldly glow that pierced through the darkness. He took a hesitant step back. "Who? What are you?" he managed to whisper, voice trembling. The figure's voice was deep and echoing, layered with echoes of fire and ice. I am the remnants of what you summoned, the fury of the earth, awakened and unbound. And now I am free. He felt a shiver run down his spine. I didn't mean to. The creature interrupted, voice booming like thunder. You played with fire, thinking it was a tool, a game. But fire is alive, and it remembers. It demands balance. You have tipped the scales. Behind the figure, the landscape was scarred, craters, fallen debris, and the smoldering carcass of the rusty red car. The sky was darkened with thick smoke, making the scene look apocalyptic. The man's mind raced. How could he undo what he'd done? Was there any way to stop this nightmare? As if sensing his thoughts, the shadowy figure moved closer. Flames, licking at the ground. You created a monster, and now it seeks justice. You cannot run from it. He looked desperately around, searching for any sign of hope. His mind screamed for a solution, but the only voice he could hear was fear. He knew in that moment that this was no longer about controlling a stunt or a scene. It was about survival. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the air. From the depths of the smoke, a second figure appeared. Smaller, but no less terrifying. Clad in dark armor, with glowing red eyes, it stepped forward with a confident, menacing gait. Its voice was cold and commanding. You've awakened the old fire. But there's more to this story. This isn't just a nightmare you can turn off. The fiery shadow turned to face the new arrival, flames flickering violently. What are you? It demanded. The armored figure drew closer, eyes burning with purpose. I am the guardian of the balance, a force that keeps chaos in check, and I've come to ensure this chaos doesn't consume everything. The man watched, in awe and terror. Two beings, one born of fire, one of darkness, faced off in a world turned into a battlefield. He realized he was caught in a conflict far bigger than himself, a battle for the very soul of the earth. His chest tightened. There has to be a way to stop this, he whispered desperately. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to make a cool video. The Guardian's voice softened slightly but remained firm. Sometimes the cost of curiosity is more than you can imagine. If you want to survive, you must choose. Help us restore the balance, or watch everything burn. The smoke thickened again, swirling like a tornado. The two powerful beings prepared for the inevitable clash, flames flickering and shadows stretching across the scorched land. The man took a step forward, realizing that his actions had ignited a chain of events that could destroy everything, and that he alone might hold the key to saving what remained. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment press down on him. The chaos around him seemed to hang in the balance, waiting for his decision. The two entities, one of fire and fury, the other of shadow and order, faced each other in a silent standoff, their energies crackling like lightning. He knew that. The only way to stop the destruction was to act, not just with words, but with resolve. Stepping forward cautiously, he raised his trembling hand, clutching the remote that had once seemed so insignificant. He looked at the two beings, each embodying forces beyond human comprehension. "Wait," he called out, voice trembling but steady. "There has to be another way. We don't have to let this chaos consume everything." The Guardian's fiery eyes flickered with curiosity. "What are you proposing?" it demanded. He hesitated, then took a bold step closer. "I created this mess, but I also have the power to fix it. Maybe not with the remote, but with my choices. I don't want to be the reason everything ends. Please, help me find a way to restore the balance." The shadowy figure studied him silently, then nodded slowly. Sometimes, true strength lies in humility and understanding. If you're willing to accept responsibility, we can work together. The flames around the fiery being softened slightly, and the darkness seemed to retreat a little. The scene felt less like a battlefield and more like the birth of a fragile hope. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small polished stone, an old token he'd kept for luck. Holding it out, he whispered, "Let this be a reminder that, even in chaos, there is still hope, that we can choose to protect what's worth saving." The fiery figure and the guardian moved closer, their forms shimmering. It was as if a new energy was forming, a bridge between destruction and order, chaos and calm. Together, they extended their hands, or, in the fiery being's case, a blazing appendage, and in the guardian's, a dark, sturdy arm. With a collective effort, they poured their energy into the land, weaving threads of fire and shadow into a delicate tapestry of renewal. The flames dimmed, and the smoke began to dissipate, revealing a sky tinged with hues of dawn. He watched as the scorched earth started to heal, sprouts of green pushing through the blackened soil. The storm of chaos was calming, and in that moment he understood that no matter how powerful the forces of destruction might be, hope and responsibility could still prevail. As the two beings slowly retreated into the shadows and flames, they left behind a world that was scarred but healing, reminded that even in the darkest times, a single act of courage could ignite a new beginning. He pocketed the stone, feeling a strange sense of peace. The remote was still in his hand, but now he knew it wasn't about control. It was about understanding the power within himself to make things right. And as the sun rose, casting golden light over the battered land, he took a step forward, ready to face whatever came next, carrying the lessons of fire, shadow, and hope in his heart.